I want to talk to you today about something that happens behind closed hospital doors, something that's become so routine we barely question it anymore. We're going to talk about why you should never, ever let someone remove your gallbladder unless it is an absolute life or death necessity. I'm going to share some hard truths, some things I've seen with my own eyes over the years, 6 lies, in fact, that surgeons sometimes tell, and you deserve to know the truth behind them. And just as importantly, I'm going to get into the simple, powerful foods that can support you when your gallbladder is crying out for help. You see, gallbladder removal is one of the most common surgeries performed in this country. It's staggering, really. If the numbers are right, over 3,000 people in the United States have this surgery every single day. 3,000 souls waking up without a part of their body they were told was disposable. But is it? Is the gallbladder just some useless little sac that sits quietly under your liver, holding bile? I'm here to tell you, with every fiber of my being, that the answer is no. It has profound, vital functions that can change the course of your health for the rest of your life. First, let's understand what's really happening inside of you. Your magnificent liver is constantly working, producing this incredible substance called bile. This bile then trickles down through a tiny tube and is stored in that little pouch they call the gallbladder. So the first thing everyone gets wrong is thinking of it as just a storage tank. It's so much more. It's a place where that bile is carefully concentrated. Now, why on earth would your body go to all that trouble? Why does it need to be concentrated? Because when you sit down to eat a meal, especially one with healthy fats, your gallbladder is designed to contract, to give a powerful squeeze, releasing this potent, concentrated bile to help you break down those fats. Without it, the pancreas, your next in command for digestion, can't do its job properly with its own enzymes, and I'm not just talking about digesting a piece of buttered toast. I'm talking about your ability to absorb the very building blocks of life, the fat-soluble vitamins, vitamin A for your eyesight and immune system, vitamin D for your bones and mood, vitamin E, a powerful antioxidant, and vitamins K1 and K2, crucial for your blood and bones. I'm also talking about those precious omega-3 fatty acids that protect your brain and heart. To pull any of that life-sustaining goodness from your food, you absolutely need bile, and the gallbladder's sacred job is to make it strong enough to work. When you don't have a gallbladder, yes, your liver still makes bile, but there's no storage, no concentration chamber. It just trickles, weakly and constantly, down into your small intestine. This is the first devastating consequence, a slow, silent decline in your ability to digest and absorb the very fats your body is starving for. But its purpose, this little organ's profound duty, doesn't stop there. The second critical function is the regulation of that bile release. It's the gatekeeper. It ensures you get that powerful surge of bile precisely when you need it, when food is present, and not when you don't. It's an intelligent system, and when we remove it, we disrupt that intelligence. The third thing, and this is something people almost never talk about, is how the gallbladder helps you regulate excess cholesterol. Did you know that? Did anyone ever tell you that your gallbladder and its bile are the body's primary way of managing and clearing out excess cholesterol? We see so many people struggling with high cholesterol, and what's the first thing that happens? They're put on a medication, often for life. But has anyone stopped to check if their gallbladder is functioning properly? It's a tragedy of modern medicine. And there's more. This concentrated bile has a powerful antimicrobial function. It's part of your first line of defense, helping to break down certain harmful bacteria and viruses before they can take root in your gut. Think about that. We're removing a piece of our own immune system. Furthermore, the bile stored in your gallbladder helps control your hunger and regulate your blood sugar. It sends signals that contribute to that feeling of satisfaction after a meal. When that system is broken, it can lead to endless cravings and instability. And then there's detoxification. The toxins that your hard-working liver filters out of your body are carried out with the help of bile. It's the vehicle that transports the garbage out. Bile also helps trigger the production of one of the most powerful antioxidants your body makes, something called glutathione. It's your master detoxifier. So you can see the gallbladder is so much more than a simple sac. It's a commander in your digestive army, a regulator of vital nutrients, and a protector of your overall health. It even influences your thyroid, triggering your thyroid hormones to work more effectively. I've seen it time and again. People with low thyroid function, a hypothyroid problem, who start to improve their bile flow, and suddenly their thyroid starts to wake up. It's all connected. A sluggish thyroid could even be the reason you're having gallbladder issues or developing gallstones in the first place. These stones are the #1 reason doctors give for removing the gallbladder. But what is a gallstone, really? It's usually a super-concentrated crystal of cholesterol. So the simple answer would be to just lower your cholesterol, right? Wrong. That's not the full story. The real secret is this. A gallstone forms when you have a high level of that super-concentrated cholesterol combined with a very low amount of bile salts. So, in truth, gallstones don't come from too much cholesterol. They come from a profound lack of good, healthy bile, and that changes everything. And this brings me to the very heart of the matter. The conversations that happen in cold, sterile offices where you're scared and in pain and you're looking for answers. Let's talk about some of the things surgeons might tell you, things that are simply not the whole truth. Let's start with the first one, the one that closes the door on all other possibilities. They'll look you in the eye and say, there are no other options, your gallbladder is killing you. You need to remove it. My friend, that is a lie. There are other paths. There are gentler ways. You have the option of taking oral bile salts. That's right, simply supplementing with the very substance your body is lacking. I've read the research myself. In one study, 50% of the people who took them had their gallstones completely dissolve within 2 years. Another study showed a success rate of just under 80% within 6 to 12 months. And there are other therapies, too. There's something called EDTA. It's a chelator, which is a fancy word that simply means claw. You can take it, and it gently latches onto the excess calcium in those stones, locks it up, and helps escort it out of your body. And I need to emphasize this with all the seriousness I can muster. These oral bile salts have very, very few side effects, especially when you compare them to the lifelong consequences of surgically removing an entire organ. There's even another alternative, a delicate procedure where the gallstone is mechanically extracted without taking the gallbladder itself. They can go in and just remove the stone. Now, I am not, for 1 second, saying you should never have surgery. Under certain circumstances, when things are dire, it can absolutely be life-threatening, and you must do what is necessary. But what you deserve, what every single person deserves, is a complete and honest informed consent, where you are told all of the options, all of the risks, and all of the potential side effects for each path. And there's one more I have to mention, lithotripsy. This uses gentle sound waves to break the gallstone into tiny pieces so it can pass harmlessly. These options exist. You have a right to know about them. The second thing you might hear is this. A gallbladder that makes gallstones is a diseased organ. And on the surface that sounds logical, but I have to ask you to pause and think deeper. Is it really a diseased organ, or is it a symptom of something else happening in your body? Is it a broken part that needs to be discarded, or is it an organ crying out for help? Think about this. Does a doctor ever sit you down and explain what actually causes gallstones to form in the first place? The heartbreaking truth is that, in their extensive training, they don't often receive a lot of information about food as medicine, about the profound relationship between what you eat and how that affects your gallbladder and the release of bile. And that, right there, is why I'm making this video. This leads us to the third lie. Let's say you're sitting in that consultation room and you have the courage to ask about your diet, and they tell you, diet really doesn't have a lot to do with it. If you ever hear those words, I want you to find your voice and ask them with genuine curiosity, then what does cause them? How can anyone be so convinced that the root cause of a gallstone, a digestive issue, can't be related to the diet? The gallbladder and its precious bile are at the very center of your digestive system. What else could possibly be the cause? It's almost like saying the quality of fuel you put in your car has nothing to do with how the engine runs. It defies simple, beautiful common sense. Now, let's move to the fourth and perhaps most dangerous lie of all. You might be told, with a reassuring smile, that the removal of the gallbladder does not result in complications. I wish I could tell you that was true. I wish I hadn't seen, with my own eyes, the countless people who were told this, only to find their lives turned upside down afterward. I have known people, and seen them in my own practice, who suffered massive, life-altering complications after their gallbladder was removed. One study I came across was absolutely shocking. It found that up to 40% of people who had their gallbladder taken out were still struggling with at least one or more symptoms, even as long as 25 years after the surgery. 25 years. A quarter of a century of paying the price for a surgery they were told was simple and without consequence. What kind of symptoms are we talking about? We're talking about chronic diarrhea that traps you in your own home. We're talking about gastritis, that burning, gnawing pain in your stomach. We're talking about a shadow of depression and anxiety that settles over your life, a heaviness that wasn't there before. But it gets even more serious. We're talking about an increased risk of cancer. The data is there for anyone to see. If you have your gallbladder removed, your risk of developing colon cancer goes up by 11%. The risk of liver cancer, the very organ the gallbladder supports, goes up by a staggering 60%. The risk of pancreatic cancer climbs by 22%, and the risk of bile duct cancer increases by 45%. And you have to stop and ask the most important question in the world. Why? Why does this happen? Well, think back to what we discussed. When the gallbladder is gone, you no longer have that intelligent regulation of concentrated bile. One of the biggest problems that arises from this is something called bile acid malabsorption. It's a mouthful, I know, but what it means is that you now have this uncontrolled, constant drip of excess bile flowing from your liver into your small intestine. So what happens next? You're put on a medication to try and slow that bile release down, a medication to fix the problem the surgery created. And that new medication isn't without its own dark side, because now you're dealing with side effects like constipation, and a whole cascade of other issues begins. Then there's the fifth lie, a way of dismissing your suffering. They might say that post-cholecystectomy syndrome, the name they give to this collection of symptoms, is controversial. It is not controversial. Look it up for yourself. It is a well-documented reality for countless people who have had this surgery. To call it controversial is to invalidate the real daily suffering of millions. And the sixth lie is one that breaks my heart. A pregnant woman experiencing gallstone pain might be told, even if the gallstone is from the pregnancy, you still need the surgery. If you ever hear this, I implore you to get a second opinion, because estrogen has a huge influence on gallstones. During pregnancy, your estrogen levels are naturally high. The same thing can happen with birth control pills. You get this spike in estrogen, and suddenly a gallstone appears. Why? Because estrogen inhibits the production and the release of bile salts from your gallbladder. It slows everything down. So, once you get through your pregnancy and your hormones return to their natural balance, is that gallstone going to stay there forever, or will it quietly go away as your body heals itself? You deserve the chance to find out. All of this points to a deeper truth, to the real reasons people get gallstones in the first place. Another cause is simply carrying extra weight. The more weight you have, the higher your risk. because being overweight is often tied to other issues, like problems with your blood sugar. This is why being a diabetic also puts you at a much higher risk for gallstones. But the biggest reason of all, the elephant in the room that no one seems to want to talk about, is high levels of insulin, especially if you have something called insulin resistance. I have spent years trying to get this message out. Insulin resistance is the root of so many of our modern diseases. It can cause a fatty liver, it drives weight gain, it leads to high blood pressure. And here's what it does to your gallbladder. Your liver, now struggling, is not going to make enough bile, and the gallbladder itself will become weak. It won't be able to contract fully to release the bile it does have. And how is this state created in the body? It's created by a diet loaded with too many carbohydrates and sugars, by consuming inflammatory seed oils, and by eating too frequently. Think about that last one for a moment. This is why people who practice intermittent fasting, who give their bodies a rest from constant digestion, often see improvements. When you don't eat for a period of time, your bile becomes more concentrated, and that concentrated bile is a powerful force that can actually help dissolve the stone. This is one of the most important actions you can take to correct gallstones. Get on a low-carbohydrate diet and embrace intermittent fasting. It is profoundly, fundamentally important. And there's a layer to this that goes even deeper into the miraculous ecosystem living inside of you. Did you know that you have two different kinds of bile? There is the bile your liver makes, yes, but you also have bile that is made by the trillions of microbes in your gut. Anything that destroys these precious allies, like a course of antibiotics, will have a direct and devastating effect on your bile. I've seen it happen. People take an antibiotic, and suddenly they are at a much higher risk for a gallstone. They take an antibiotic, and they start gaining weight, because one of the unspoken symptoms of removing the gallbladder is unexplained weight gain. It's all connected. The health of your gut is the health of your gallbladder. This brings us to one of the most tragic pieces of misinformation from the last half-century, the crusade against fat and cholesterol. Another major cause of a low amount of bile is going on a low-fat or a low-cholesterol diet. Think about this for a moment. Guess what your body uses as the raw material to make bile? Cholesterol. That is where it comes from. And if you are deliberately avoiding it, if you're not putting any cholesterol into your body at all, you can become deficient in the very building blocks your liver needs to create bile. This is why, and it sounds unbelievable until you understand the truth, people on a low-fat diet are more at risk for a gallstone than people who eat healthy fats. It's a fascinating and heartbreaking irony. So, this begs the question, what kind of fat encourages the liver to do its job? What kind of fat signals it to synthesize more of this precious bile? Out of all the fats in the world, the research points to one that is most potent: the fat from fatty fish. This makes perfect sense from an evolutionary standpoint. In that beautiful, oily fish, you have something incredibly important called DHA, a powerful omega-3 fatty acid. But there are other good fats, too, from healthy meats and even from good olive oil. Of course, I would never, ever recommend the industrial seed oils. They are a poison that only creates inflammation. But the other thing that wakes up your liver and tells it to make more bile is eating cholesterol-rich foods. Real foods, butter, eggs, shellfish, seafood, liver. And it just so happens that egg yolks and liver are incredibly high in a nutrient called choline. Choline is another key to this whole puzzle. In fact, taking a choline supplement is almost like taking a form of bile itself, giving your body the direct help it needs to digest fats. Now, we've talked about supporting the liver, but what about the gallbladder itself? Are there things that can help it contract, that can gently stimulate it to release more of that potent, concentrated bile? Yes, and the answers are found in nature. Some of the very fats I just mentioned can help, as can healthy proteins. But there are also other things, like the bitter greens your grandmother probably told you to eat: arugula, radish, even celery. Adding some sauerkraut to your meals can increase the good bacteria in your gut so they can make additional bile salts for you. Even the simple citrus in a lemon or a lime can help encourage that bile to flow. And sometimes the problem isn't the gallbladder at all, but the stomach. Taking a little more acid, like adding apple cider vinegar or a supplement called betaine hydrochloride, can increase your stomach's acidity. You need a strong acid in your stomach to trigger the release of bile from the gallbladder. A lack of stomach acid could be the reason things are sluggish downstream. In other words, your stomach problem is causing the gallbladder problem. You have to connect the dots. Certain herbs, ancient remedies, can also increase the contraction of the gallbladder: turmeric, ginger, milk thistle, parsley, and cilantro. And let us not forget the toll of our modern lives. If someone is going through chronic stress, their body is going to be flooded with cortisol, and that stress hormone will shut down the production of bile too. The same goes for anyone taking a synthetic version of cortisol, like prednisone. It all leads to the same place, a sluggish, struggling system. So now you have a roadmap, a diet that is incredibly healthy, not just for gallstones, but for supporting the vibrant, lifelong health of your gallbladder. I just challenge you to investigate this for yourself. Do your own research on the possibility of consuming gentle bile salts after each meal, something like tudka or other purified bile salts. I hope, from the bottom of my heart, that you are now much more aware of your gallbladder and its profound importance.